Bang, the noise reverberated down the valley like a firework on the 4th of July. But it wasn't a holiday. I was running out of my farmhouse boots, not even laced tight in my throat. My dog Cooper barked frantically as we ran together out into the open pasture. I was just finished my morning coffee when I heard the shot, and that is where I first saw it. Resting in the middle of the field was Jasper. My prize bull, still his huge brown body, unmoving. His chest didn't rise. His eyes were open but unseeing. "No, no, no!" I cried, falling to my knees beside him. Jasper wasn't just any bull. He was a legacy, a 12-time blue ribbon winner worth more than a new truck. He was the heart of my ranch, a gentle giant who munched apples from my hand and preferred country music to more than most folks. I know I glanced up, and that's when I saw the two guys standing by the fence line. They weren't thieves, they weren't hunters. They were in reflective vests with HOA property maintenance stenciled on the back. "What the hell did you do?" I yelled. One of the men was taken aback. The other had a rifle. They stood there like deer in headlights. That's when the man with the gun stammered. "We thought you were a threat, sir." He charged at us. I glanced back at Jasper. He hadn't moved anywhere. His hooves had hardly changed from the same soft spot of ground where he liked to bask in the mornings. "You killed my bull on my land. Who sent you?" "The HOA president," the man grumbled. "She told us that we were on a mission to clean the property." I couldn't speak. My voice cracked, my fists were in knots. Then my phone rang. A message appeared on my screen from my neighbor Lisa. "Hey, just saw HOA trucks heading your way about a surprise property inspection. A flame burned within me hotter than the Texas sun. What type of cleaning was involved? Trespassing loaded guns and slaughtering a man's cattle." And that is when the storm really started. Now let me go back to how this began 2 weeks prior to that terrible morning. I had been having one of the few quiet days on my ranch. The spring air was crisp. The cows were grazing. My son, Ben, home from college for the break, was brushing down Jasper near the stable, while regaling me with the story of a girl he had a crush on in his economics class. We laughed. It was one of those special father-son moments you want to put in a bottle and say forever. That's when we heard the knock. It was sharp, repetitive, almost rude. I opened the screen door to find her standing there. HOA President Cheryl Langston, clipboard in one hand, tablet in the other, blonde bobbed hair, sunglasses too large for her face. Her lips pursed so tight they might have cracked a walnut. "Mr. Granger," she said with a smile so phony I could smell the plastic, "we've had complaints about overgrowth on your property line and some unsightly structures behind your barn." I blinked. "You mean the hay storage?" "It's not in compliance with HOA rules. I don't belong to the HOA." She cocked her head. "In fact, your property lies within the extended surveillance circle of our community association." Bylaws, that was the first I'd ever heard of any extended surveillance. I wasn't even in her subdivision. My ranch had been an historic homestead handed down since my great-grandfather settled it, more than a century ago. The HOA didn't get a word in edgewise here anyway. I kept it polite. "I'll double-check the boundaries," I explained to her. "But you're not entitled to control my land." She smiled again. "Well, we'll just see about that." At first, I thought she was just posturing. Cheryl was the type of woman who enjoyed control. She had tried to get another neighbor to park a boat in his own driveway. But the next day, I saw some unusual orange flags, dozens of itsy-bitsy surveyors. Flags arranged on the rear edge of my place, stretching some 200 yards or so. I hadn't hired anybody. Ben hadn't either. Then there came the drone, hovering over the ranch like an interfering wasp. Ben attempted to swat at it with a broom. One evening that night, I received a letter thrust through my door. "Pay attention to this property as being assessed for corrective landscaping and visual compliance. Please vacate unauthorized structures by end of week." It was printed on HOA letterhead, but not signed. I should have summoned a lawyer then. But part of me thought surely no one would be that insane. I'd had dealings with intransigent people before, but this was trespassing, bullying that weekend. Ben left to visit friends, and I remained behind to take care of Jasper's feeding schedule and fix a broken fence. On Sunday, I saw tire marks on my private driveway, deep, fresh ones, but when I circumambulated the house, nobody was around. It began to feel as though I was being watched. Monday morning, I received a call from Miss Cheryl herself. Mr. Granger, she said, I wanted to inform that we're sending a crew to clean up your property tomorrow, free of charge to you. I blinked I hadn't asked anyone for any kind of cleanup. Well, she said with saccharine sweetness, we had a petition brought forth by the board, and it passed unanimously. We're just trying to make our neighborhood more beautiful. My ranch is not in your neighborhood, I said. Oh, but it impacts the aesthetic, she said, particularly for the backlot residents with views of your property, just wanting to assist. Then she hung up. I reported the harassment to the sheriff's department, but since no physical harm had been done yet, they said they couldn't interfere. Call us if anyone trespasses on your property without permission. They said I didn't have to wait long. The following morning I woke up early. Something felt off. Cooper barked continuously by the back door. I grabbed my boots and stepped outside, heart racing. That's when I heard the first engine. Then a second two white trucks with HOA logos came rolling up the dirt path behind the stables. In defiance of my private property sign, 4 men leaped out with gloves, chainsaws, weed trimmers, and guns. I yelled, "Get off my land." One of them yelled back, "We're here for authorized cleanup, don't interfere." I sprinted for my phone. I called the sheriff's office, told them everything, pleaded with them to come quickly, but it was already too late from the other side of the pasture. I heard a loud crack, then a second, then Cooper howled. I dropped the phone and ran, and what I saw next was the last thing I ever thought. Jasper. Down, blood on the grass, the workers stepping back, looking frantic, and in that frozen, shattering moment, I knew they had shot my bull on my land while professing to clean it. I fell to my knees. I was trembling with rage and devastation. Then one of the workers took out his radio and spoke words that made my blood colder than ice. Call Cheryl, tell her the bull's down, and tell her we may have made a mistake. I stood there shaking my fists clenched so hard my knuckles went white. My prized bull, the animal I'd raised from a calf train fed by hand, was gone. And all because some HOA goons were acting like they owned land that wasn't theirs. I glanced up at the man with the rifle. You shot my bull for what? Because you thought it was a threat while cleaning? He didn't say anything. Neither did the others. They just looked at each other, whispering to each other, like afraid children who had done something they couldn't undo. I took my phone and pointed it at them. Smiled for the camera. I snapped, you just earned yourself a one-way trip to court that got them moving. One of them tried to block the shot, stepping between me and the others. Sir, please, we didn't mean for this to happen. The HOA president gave us clearance. You had no right to be here, and the first thing I yelled, now you're going to tell the sheriff why you're trespassing and why you're carrying a gun on private property. At that moment, I heard the wall of sirens in the distance. Thank God I had called them the minute the trucks arrived, and they were finally closing in. The workers began retreating towards their trucks, but I was not going to let them just drive away, get down there and stay right there. I told them, stepping out in front of their truck, you're not going anywhere until the sheriff arrives. One of them stopped the guy with the rifle, laid it carefully on the back of the tailgate, as if he finally appreciated how much in trouble he was. They were all sweating now, clearly not expecting any real consequences. 10 minutes later, a dusty patrol car pulled into the lot, tires crunching over the gravel. Deputy Harris stepped out. Young guy, smart, I'd seen him before. At the local livestock fair, he took one look at Jasper's body, then looked at the HOA crew. Whose weapon is it? He asked flatly. That'd be mine, one of the workers remarked, raising his hand nervously. You got a license for that? Yes, sir. Do you have it with you? No, sir. Deputy Harris turned to me. You own this land, Mr. Granger? Yes, I said, it's been in my family for generations, and I never gave anyone permission to come here with chainsaws, rifles, or anything else. One of the workers spoke up, but Cheryl explained, I don't give a damn what Cheryl said. The deputy cut in, she's not the law? Then he went for his radio dispatch. I've got an unauthorized discharge of a firearm and a possible trespassing situation. Send backup, also call animal control to report a livestock shooting. When the second unit arrived, they took photos of Jasper's body, collected witness testimony, and retrieved the rifle. The HOA employees were held on the property for questioning. Still, my heart was like a sinking rock. Jasper was gone. Nothing would ever bring him back. Later that afternoon, Ben rushed home after I called him. He dropped his backpack at the door and ran to the pasture the moment he saw Jasper's dead body. His legs buckled. Dad, He whimpered, tears brimming. No, he was all right yesterday. I know, son, I told him, wrapping my arms around him. He didn't struggle, it was rapid, but we're not going to let this lie. Ben had tears streaming from his eyes and gazed up at me. We're suing them, right? I nodded. Oh, we're suing the lot of them. Beginning with Cheryl Langston the following morning, I made my way down to the county courthouse and signed a complaint of criminal trespassing and destruction of property. My attorney, Bill Cross, an old family friend, immediately pounced on it. Bill was a pit bull in the courtroom and he despised HOA overreach more than anybody I knew. I've been waiting for a case like this. He said they overstepped it way too much. And that bull you indicated, he had top-of-the-line pedigree. I mentioned worth at least 40 grand, possibly more. Bill raised his eyebrow. That puts this in a felony level. Loss of property, excellent. On that same day, Cheryl Langston made up her mind to drop by and pay me a visit. She came in her white Lexus parked at the ranch gate, like she belonged there. She came out standing in heels and a blazer, like she was going to a charity gala and not a crime scene. I didn't even let her get a word in. Edgewise, I walked right up to the fence and told her, "Turn around, Cheryl, you're not welcome here." "Now wait just a moment, Mr. Granger." She started all fake charm. "There's been a misunderstanding. My crew was told to clean up the shared view lines for the homeowner's benefit. We didn't know you had livestock so close to the easement." "There's no easement," I barked. "You crossed my fence line. You brought guns, you killed my animal, and you think that's a misunderstanding." Cheryl held her ground. "It was an unfortunate mistake, but technically, there's no technically about it. The sheriff has your men on record admitting they were sent here under your orders, and my lawyer is already building a case." Her smile faltered. "You'll be hearing from my attorney as well," she snapped, flipping her sunglasses down. "You're making this much bigger than it needs to be." "No, you made it big," I growled. "And believe me, this is just the beginning." 2 days later, the HOA tried to spin the entire affair. They put out a release in the neighborhood newsletter as a result of a communication breakdown during a regular maintenance procedure. An accident did take place with a nearby ranch animal. "We regret what happened and are attempting to resolve things peacefully." Peaceful resolution, Ben read it aloud and almost spat out his soda. "They killed our bull and labeled it a miscommunication," he said. "What's next? They going to label it landscaping." But what they didn't anticipate was the firestorm that followed. See, I wasn't the only one Cheryl had touched up. Turns out she'd been harassing loads of people over the previous year. One homeowner came forward regarding being fined for having a wind chime. Another said her kid got yelled at for chalk drawings on their sidewalk. People were fed up with Cheryl, and when they heard about Jasper, they flipped to my story. Made the local news that Friday. The headline was, "HOA Gone Too Far, Prize-Winning Bull Shot on Historic Ranch" by Saturday reporters. "We're calling my landline animal rights organizations. We're providing legal aid." Even an office of a local senator sent a representative to listen to my case. But all of that could not prevent what occurred next, because just when I was thinking that things had reached bottom, I received a call from Bill, my attorney. They filed a counterclaim. He said sternly, "What the HOA alleges, you broke a community buffer regulation. They're accusing you of being responsible for keeping violent livestock close to residential property." My mouth dried up. "They're attempting to pin this on Jasper?" I asked incredulously. Bill let out a sigh. "Yep. They're attempting to turn the tables, and now we have a war of laws on our hands." And just like that, a horrible situation got even worse. I slammed the telephone down, gazing out of the kitchen window where Jasper used to graze. Now, not only had they trespassed, not only had they killed my bull, but they had the temerity to accuse me of it. My hands were shaking again, not with sorrow this time, but with sheer boiling fury. Ben walked in, holding his phone. "Dad, you're not going to believe this. Look." He held out his phone to me from the official Facebook page of the HOA. It had a picture of Jasper with a very long caption under it. "We regret the devastating occurrence of livestock that presented an immediate risk during a safety inspection. The HOA board is taking steps to prevent further risks to nearby families happen." I felt ill. They're painting him like some sort of savage animal. Ben said Jasper was the kindest animal in the entire valley. I didn't say anything. I just picked up my hat, went out to the barn and slammed the door shut behind me. Inside, I glared at Jasper's vacant stall, his halter still hanging on the hook, His feed bucket half full, still rested on the rail. I leaned against the wooden post and allowed the silence to weigh on me. Then I heard the barn door creak open. It was Ben. "Dad," he said quietly, "I know you're upset, I am too, but they're not just coming for your land anymore. They're coming for your name." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a personal attack. This was a power play. The HOA was attempting to establish a legal precedent, something that would allow them to extend their control to land they didn't even own. They targeted me because I was stubborn, old school, isolated. They thought I wouldn't stand up to them. They thought wrong. The following day, Bill and I walked into the county clerk's office with a box of documents, deeds, maps, historical permits, an entire binder tracing the status of my ranch as being exempt from any HOA jurisdiction since 1932. "This is the evidence," Bill told the clerk. "Mr. Greer's property is legally deemed autonomous from all neighboring residential management structures. We are submitting a motion to rebut the HOA's fictitious assertions and seek immediate injunction against further actions by the HOA." It didn't stop there. Ben came up with an idea. He said, "Let's go public." So I made a video. I stood in Jasper's vacant pasture, holding his halter in my hand. "My name is Hank Granger," I started. "I'm a rancher, a dad, and until last week I believed I lived in a free country." I explained the whole thing, every detail. The trespassing, the shooting, the lies, the smear campaign. I concluded with this: Jasper didn't deserve what happened. No animal does. But this isn't just about a bull. It's about property rights, boundaries, and bullies with clipboards. We posted the video that night. By morning, it had more than 400,000 views overnight. The tide began to change. People were tagging, their state reps, lawyers were offering assistance. Pro bono journalists from 3 national newspapers contacted. But Cheryl, she wasn't backing down that same weekend. She called an emergency HOA board meeting. The agenda widened authority zones for neighborhood security. I attended uninvited. It was conducted in the community clubhouse, where they typically threw wine mixers and book club gatherings. I entered, boots on my feet, my hat, and clutching a copy of the land deed in hand. The room fell silent. Cheryl stood at the front mid-sentence. "And with such a solution, we guarantee that non-compliant, I interrupted. "Is that what you're referring to as private property?" Now she blushed red. "Mr. Granger, you are not a member here. Please leave. I'll leave after I've expressed my say." The crowd murmured, some spoke in hushed tones, some glared at the ground. I walked forward. "You all need to know what this woman is doing in your name. She sent armed laborers onto my property. They killed my bull, and now she's attempting to alter the law so she can cover up." Someone in the back raised their hand. "Is that true?" Cheryl stuttered. "They were contract laborers. The bull was vicious," he charged. "No, he didn't," I snapped. "He was sunbathing, and you sent a man with a gun onto another person's property." More murmurs. Then one person said, "If that were my dog rather than his bull, would you have done the same?" The entire room fell silent. Cheryl's lips trembled. "We were merely upholding community security." Another voice. "I didn't sign up for this. You're making us all look bad. I held up the deed, my land, my rules, and you can take your HOA lines and leave them where they should be, inside your own damn gates." Then I stepped outside, and that was the moment Cheryl lost control. But just as I was thinking things were settling down, something else occurred. I returned home later that evening to discover my front gate ajar. Cooper barked frantically at the side of the barn. I ran up, flashlight in hand, sweeping the place over, and that's when I saw it. The side of my barn was spray painted in huge red letters. "Dangerous livestock violates code." My heart fell. Whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. It wasn't some random thing. It was a warning, a threat. Someone had broken into my property again and destroyed it in the middle of the night. Ben ran out behind me. Who did this?" I shook my head. "I don't know, but it's not over, because now it wasn't just legal, it was personal, and I had no idea what they were going to do next." The next morning, I didn't even get to pour my coffee before I got a call from the sheriff's office. "Mr. Granger, Deputy Harris told me we had an anonymous tip claiming there's unlicensed livestock on your place. Animal control would like to perform an inspection." I laughed harshly. "Unlicensed? Next thing you'll be arresting my chickens for loitering." I know it's ridiculous, Harris replied softly. But once a complaint's filed, we have to stand on it. I'll be there in person to make sure they don't get in over their head. I hung up and breathed hard. I'd spent my whole life on this ranch. I had every permit, every document. This wasn't about safety or rules anymore. This was a takeover, plain and simple, by 10 a.m. A White County Animal Control marked van drove onto my drive. With Deputy Harris in his patrol car, 2 officers exited with clipboards. "Won't take but a minute, sir," one stated. "We simply need to check livestock numbers and verify housing facilities." They checked out the barn, the pasture, the water pipes. Everything was neat labeled and just where it needed to be. Cooper trailed along behind them, growling low under his breath when they finished the lead. Officer nodded to me. "Everything is all right. No infractions here." As they headed off, I asked, "Mind telling me who made the complaint?" He looked around awkwardly. "We're not allowed to say it, but off the record it was someone on the HOA board. Same name we've seen on a lot of these." Cheryl, I wasn't surprised, but now I had confirmation. She wasn't just digging her heels in. She was escalating. She progressed from sending trespassers to attempting to get my whole livestock business closed down by harassment, and it went further. 2 days later, Ben ran into the kitchen brandishing a notice, "Dad." This was taped onto our mailbox. It was a photocopied handout with HOA lettering. Large red print at the top. Read, "Community Safety Alert, Unfenced Livestock. Putting children at risk." The handout contained a hazy picture of Jasper from standing by the fence line, peacefully chewing grass. "They're spreading this crap all over the neighborhood," Ben had said angrily, attempting to make it appear that Jasper was the danger. I took the flyer and ripped it in half. "That's it. We're going public once more." That evening, I sat down in front of my camera and taped another video. This time I displayed the vandalism on my barn. I read the flyer word for word. Then I held up a photo of Jasper wearing his blue ribbon medal at the state fair. "This is the bull they're calling dangerous," I said to the camera. "This gentle animal never hurt a soul, and now they're using his name to spread lies." I paused, breathing deeply. The truth is, this isn't about HOA rules, it's about power. This woman, Cheryl Langston, has made a volunteer neighborhood board into a private militia, and now she's trying to shut me up, to intimidate me off my own property. I leaned in, but I'm not leaving. We posted the video within hours. It was shared by ranching organizations, HOA, watchdog sites, even some legal reform activists. The momentum was growing. That's when the messages began rolling in. People from all over country began sharing their HOA horror stories. One man said his daughter's lemonade stand was fine. Another woman said her HOA demanded she remove a wheelchair ramp for aesthetic reasons. Turns out this was more than just one ranch. It was a movement waiting to happen. The next morning, Bill called. His voice sounded different, excited but tense. "Hank, I just got an update from the county records office. You're going to want to have a seat. I'm already standing." Go ahead. Turns out Cheryl's been attempting to redraw the HOA boundary map. She filed a petition to designate adjacent rural land, yours included, as part of a proposed community environmental buffer zone. I blinked. "Wait, what does that mean?" "It's a loophole. It would grant the HOA environmental control of non-member property within a given radius. Essentially, if this does pass, they'd have legal standing to control your property." I was surprised she attempted to sneak it past under the radar. But now that the story's gone viral, everyone's watching. Bill hesitated, then said, "We need to shut down that petition before the county board votes on it next week. Otherwise, they'll use that to seal your rights off forever." Now it was a matter of a race against time. I had 7 days to prevent Cheryl from rewriting the law and pilfering the remainder of my liberty. But before we could muster support, get people signing petitions, and prepare public declarations, something else intervened. Something that rendered everything blow up. Ben and I had just returned from having a meeting with our lawyer. It was late dark. Cooper was pacing beside the back door. Agitated, suddenly the lights in the barn came on. "Did you turn them on?" Ben asked. "No," I replied, squinting. Stepped outside and walked slowly towards the barn. Then we caught a whiff of smoke. "Ben, go back 911. I ran forward, kicking open the side door, and was greeted by dense black air and the sound of small flames creeping up the hay bales. It wasn't a big fire yet, but it was deliberate. Someone had tossed a fire starter into the barn within minutes. There was the sheriff and the volunteer fire department out there, putting out the fire before it got out of hand. Deputy Harris was angry looking. "This wasn't an accident," he said. "We discovered a shattered bottle with accelerant residue. Someone set this on fire on purpose. And I know exactly who I told through gritted teeth. But Cheryl had been clever this time. There were no prints, no cameras, no witnesses, just ash, and the clear message it conveyed: back off, or we'll complete what we began that night." Ben hardly slept. I sat on the porch with my shotgun across my lap, eyes on the barn all night. The line had been crossed. First they trespassed, then they killed. Now they tried to burn us out, and I knew this was no longer just about land or laws. This was war, and I was going to end it before they ruined someone else's life too. The smell of smoke still lingered the next morning, ash spread out on the barn floor like a last offense. A black discoloration to everything Jasper had once his hands had lain on the burnt beams. They had not fallen apart, but the injury was there, hideous, plain, and raucous. Ben glared at the burnt hay bales. If we hadn't arrived when we did, I know I grumbled, this was a threat, but they'd chosen the wrong man to frighten off by lunch. I had county arson investigators searching the barn. They confirmed what we already suspected: accelerants were employed. The fire was intentional, and whoever set it knew how to do it fast and stealthy, but still no suspects, no fingerprints. And Cheryl, she disappeared from view. Didn't answer her phone, didn't reply to HOA emails. She even canceled the upcoming HOA town hall due to safety concerns, coward. But here's what she didn't know while she was hiding. The truth was spreading like wildfire. Because that morning, a TV news crew rolled onto my ranch. Channel 7, big coverage, bigger voice. They caught the barn damage, the bullet holes from when Jasper was shot, and even interviewed Ben, who talked like a young man with fire in his chest and heartbreak in his voice. He was more than just a bull. Ben said to the camera, he was family, and we're not going to let the people who did this get away with it. That video appeared on the evening news, and the next day everything exploded. Justice for Jasper began trending. Local politicians weighed in a petition to investigate the HOA's actions, garnered over 100,000 signatures. In 2 days, even the state agriculture commissioner issued a statement saying, "Private ranch owners must be guarded against illegal overreach and property abuse. No matter HOA conflicts." Still, Cheryl remained quiet, but her silence only made her appear more culpable. And then we received the breakthrough. We didn't anticipate. It came from a high school student. Lisa, my next-door neighbor who lived 2 properties down, called me up late that night. "Mr. Granger," she whispered on the phone. "My son Kyle, he saw something." I sat up straight. "What do you mean?" "He was hanging out with his friends the night the barn burned. They were riding their bikes by the HOA clubhouse. He saw 2 men putting things into the back of a white HOA maintenance truck, and one of them had a gas can. Did he get a picture?" There was a silence. Then yes, I instructed him not to intervene. But now with all of this occurring, I instructed her to forward it directly to Bill. And when I laid eyes on the photograph, my jaw hit the floor. Plain as day, a man we knew from the previous trespass. The one with the rifle standing next to a second man, both loading equipment into the truck. One of them was holding a red gas can. There was even a timestamp, 2 hours before the barn fire. Bill phoned the sheriff right away. With the picture added to the previous incident and eyewitness accounts, they had enough to obtain a search warrant for Cheryl's HOA storage units. 2 days later, they served it. What they discovered: a case of unused accelerant bottles, a crate of trail cameras likely employed to monitor properties, such as mine, and in one drawer a typescript list of addresses marked targeted compliance phase 2. My ranch was circled in red ink. Deputy Harris interviewed me in town later in the evening. His face was serious. "We've got enough. Now charges are in the works. The DA is reviewing everything." I let out a deep breath. It wasn't justice yet, but it was on its way. Then he said something that made me shiver again. "Hank, you're not the only one. She attacked another rancher over the valley. Same thing, flyers, threats. Then a fire threat. They didn't speak out because they were afraid. So it wasn't personal, it was patterned. Cheryl had been attempting to play a long game. Push out landowners one by one, cleared the way for development in HOA growth, And Jasper, he was merely the first victim who caught the world's attention. The following day, I went back to the pasture. It was peaceful. Ben had refurbished a plain wood sign and stuck it at the fence line. In loving memory of Jasper, the big gentle soul, I stood alongside it in silence. Individuals were driving past now, leaving flowers. Small presents. One child left a blue ribbon on the gate, and for the first time in weeks, I felt as though we weren't battling in vain. But Cheryl still hadn't been arrested. The HOA board hadn't been dismantled, and the buffer zone measure still up for vote in 48 hours. We had to bring this to a close. We needed one final shove, so that evening I hosted a town hall of my own. I rented out the county fairgrounds, invited press community leaders, ranchers, and neighbors from miles around. When I took the stage, I looked out and saw hundreds of faces, young, old, white, black farmers, business owners, even a few HOA board members who'd quietly reached out and said, "We didn't know we want her gone too." I grabbed the mic. "My name is Hank Granger. I've lived here my entire life, and I've never been embarrassed to say that I love it." I told them all about it: Jasper, the trespass, the shooting, the smear campaign, the fire. Then I held up a copy of Cheryl's target list. She was coming for all of us. I said I was just first in line silence, then applause, then standing ovation. Reporters were filming, and that's when I ended with this: "I'm not just asking for justice for my ranch. I'm asking you to stand up for every family who's ever been bullied by people in suits with too much power and too little heart." The crowd roared, but the real battle, the vote on the buffer zone, was still to come. The morning of the vote, I arrived at the Early Bill County Board meeting. Early Bill was already seated, dressed sharp, briefcase full of evidence. Then in walked Cheryl Langston for the first time since the fire. She was wearing dark sunglasses, white jacket, attempting to look important, but everyone turned around to stare. She looked smaller now, weaker, like the truth had sapped her of all that phony confidence. The board meeting started. Both sides made their argument. Cheryl attempted to spin her proposal as environmental. Stewardship and visual harmony bill tore her apart. Then I stood, and for 5 minutes I talked from the heart. No yelling, no rage, just a father who lost a bull and almost lost his legacy. The board deliberated, and then the decision was made. Motion to expand the HOA buffer zone. Denied unanimously sat Cheryl. She didn't speak a word. She just stood up and left. But the time she walked into the hallway, 2 deputies came in front of her. "Ma'am, we'd like to have a word with you." And thus Cheryl Langston, the iron-fisted I once president, was brought to task for once. But then, what did the next event be? Drug everyone in. Check the hallway, got quiet. The 2 deputies stepped behind Cheryl, her mouth open but no words came. She looked around, maybe searching for a way out, maybe hoping someone would speak on her behalf. No one did. "Ma'am," Deputy Harris said firmly, "you are being detained for questioning in connection with multiple counts of criminal trespass, arson, destruction of private property, and reckless endangerment." The room behind us erupted. Reporters, scrambling people, gasping, cameras flashing. Cheryl stammered, "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president." Deputy Harris didn't even flinch no more. They walked her out in cuffs. Ben was standing next to me with his phone taping. "You think she'll go to jail?" he asked. I kept my gaze on the door. Cheryl had just vanished through. She'll definitely stand trial. That's a beginning. The arrest made the news within the hour. By dinner time, it had hit the front page of the local paper. HOA president arrested in ranch fire investigation. But what the public didn't yet know, and what surprised me, was what they discovered when they searched Cheryl's office and house. The following morning, Bill phoned me just after sunup, sounding winded. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "They discovered something in her desk drawer." "What?" "A purchase order for a bulldozer." I blinked. "A bulldozer to be delivered to your doorstep next week. Her intention was to have your pasture and barn cleared by force in the guise of beautification enforcement." I froze. She was going to knock down my ranch. That's not all. They discovered internal HOA memos indicating they were in early negotiations with a commercial developer. "Guess what they were going to put on your property?" "I already knew townhouses." I grumbled. "Yep. Upscale residential units, HOA governed." She had visions of taking the community board's influence throughout the whole valley. My gut twisted. She wasn't merely attempting to push me out. She was going to wipe out everything I'd created and put in concrete and condos. The woman was fixated on control, and she cared who got run over by her bulldozer. Literally, that was the revelation that nailed the coffin. Public outcry turned into public outrage. Former HOA board members began coming forward one by one, admitting they'd been pressured, manipulated, and even threatened by Cheryl to conform to her plans. One woman cried to reporters, "She told me if I didn't vote for her, she'd find me into foreclosure." The district attorney's office started preparing charges, not only for trespass and arson, but for conspiracy, fraud, and abuse of authority, and suddenly I wasn't the one on trial anymore. Cheryl was meanwhile back at the ranch. We began fixing up the barn. Neighbors stopped by to assist Lisa, brought her son Kyle and a group of boys with hammers and nails. The local high school shop teacher gave new boards. Someone even brought a fresh bale of hay with a note that said, "For the next gentle giant." Ben and I worked day and night shoulder to shoulder, and for the first time in weeks we laughed again. One afternoon I caught Ben sitting by Jasper's memorial sign drawing something in a notebook. "What's that?" I asked. He smiled. "I'm designing a new plaque, thinking we make this entire area a quiet tribute space." I nodded slowly. "That would be good. Jasper deserves it, so did every farmer, rancher, and landowner who'd ever been bullied around by folks like Cheryl. This wasn't just for us anymore. This was for all of them." Then came the final blow 2 days before Cheryl's court appearance. The new board of the HOA that formed after the remainder of the membership resigned in their shame made a public apology. They announced the organization's immediate dismantling, citing irreversible loss of confidence and a sense of needing to restore governance in the hands of the people. The board voted themselves out and severed all control over extended properties like mine. A mob gathered outside of the old HOA office to smile. As the HOA sign was removed, I saw the video online grinning as a small bulldozer. Not Cheryl's pulled the rusty HOA community sign directly into a dumpster. Poetic justice. But Cheryl, she didn't go quietly without one final twist during her arraignment. Cheryl stood before the judge, and in a moment, no one of the defendants attempted to plead insanity. She asserted stress, paranoia, and overwork caused her to lose contact with reality that did not impress the judge. "I've read your emails, texts, and HOA memos," the judge retorted. "You were very in contact with reality, you just felt it was yours." Cheryl was denied bail and ordered to be tried. It would be a lengthy case, but it no longer mattered how long, because justice had at last caught up with her that night as the sun set low over the pasture, and the ranch lay soft and golden in its light. Ben and I sat on the tailgate of the truck, drinking lemonade. Cooper slept between us, tail thumping gently in sleep. "You know, Dad," Ben said, "for a while there I thought we'd lost everything." I looked out at the fixed barn, at the open fields, at the new calf grazing quietly where Jasper once stood. "No," I said, "they tried, but we held on." He nodded still. "I hope this never happens to anyone else." I reached over, tousling his hair. "That's why we told the story, so people would learn. Stand up, fight back when they pushed us too far." Then I toasted to the heavens with my glass to Jasper. I toasted Jasper, Ben resounded, and as the stars came alive and the ground whispered softly under our feet, we knew one thing for certain: the bull may have gone down, but the ranch stood firm. Months went by. The headlines disappeared. The court case went ahead through the system. Slower than molasses in January, Cheryl Langston was facing several charges of felony, now arson, fraud, criminal conspiracy, and improper use of authority. Her lawyer attempted every device in the book, delay after delay, but every motion got kicked down one by one, and I didn't stop watching. I watched every hearing, even when they dragged on. I wanted to be in the room when justice was read out loud. Ben kept a scrapbook of every article and photo. He added a page for each major update, especially the good ones. There were a lot more of those these days. The ranch, meanwhile, had healed a new bull named Samson. A gift from a community livestock fund had come to join our herd. He wasn't Jasper, but he had that same kind heart and big inquiring eyes. We even resumed our ranch to school tours. Again, local children would come out on Fridays to learn how to feed calves, plant seedlings, and observe how a real ranch operated. Ben took the lead with the kids. He'd brighten up every time a child inquired about that famous bull they'd heard about on the news. We transformed the turn of Jasper's pasture into a garden. Wildflowers in bloom, bright yellow and purple. A smooth stone rested at the center, etched with the words, Jasper the Bull. That meant something. People came to see it, to photograph, to recall. But Cheryl, her tale wasn't finished. In a shock move in pretrial proceedings, her lawyer proposed a plea bargain. No prison. The proposal stated in return for